The National News Desk. Locally covered, nationally connected. Good evening. I'm Taylor Murray. Welcome to the National News Desk, America's News Now. Breaking news from the White House this afternoon. President Donald Trump has announced the U.S. military has conducted a second kinetic strike against narco drugs that can kill Americans. We are hunting you. This is, of course, a developing story, and we will be following. Troops may soon be on the way back to the nation's capital, even as
just like we did in D.C.
Now, the president also threatened to once again federalize the police and call a emergency if the Metropolitan Police Department does not cooperate with immigration enforcement in removing and relocating dangerous illegal aliens. The president's comments come after D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser told reporters last week that immigration enforcement is not what MPD does or will do. Meanwhile, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker is denouncing President Trump's federal ICE deployments in the Windy City. Pritzker says people across Chicago are living in fear, frightened about the potential of military troops coming to their neighborhoods.
People are fearful of masked men in unmarked vans who could grab them on a street corner because of how they look or how they sound. People are scared to go to work. They're scared to take their kids to school. They're scared to go to school themselves or to go shopping.
Homeland Security's Operation Midway Blitz is now in its second week, targeting undocumented immigrants in Illinois with criminal records. The president has threatened to deploy the National Guard to Chicago, but has not yet. And yet another governor is criticizing the ramping up of federal immigration enforcement, calling the actions of ICE agents cruel following a raid nearly 2 weeks ago at an upstate New York factory. Today, New York Governor Kathy Hochul visited Nutrition Bar Confectioners, where 57 workers were detained. The business staff told Hochul that ICE agents divided workers by their skin color, and even 3 mothers were separated from their children under age 1. Following the raid, 5 workers were charged with illegally re-entering the United States, according to federal prosecutors. In other news now, the campus lockdown at Albany State University in Albany, Georgia, has been lifted, but not before a 17-year-old girl was shot at an apartment near campus. She's now being treated at the hospital for non-life-threatening injuries. Local stations are reporting 1 man was taken into custody. Accused Charlie Kirk assassin Tyler Robinson is expected to be formally charged tomorrow. President Trump suggests the man suspected of fatally shooting political activist Charlie Kirk last week was radicalized on the internet.
And it seems like he has wonderful parents, brought in a wonderful neighborhood, smart guy, great boards, great marks, great student. And then something happened to him over a fairly short period of time. It looks like he was radicalized over the internet.
The FBI continues to gather new evidence in the case. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins is joining us now live from Washington with the latest out of Utah.
Those who loved conservative activist Charlie Kirk packing the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. Sunday evening for prayer service.
I would not be in this position if not for the heroic efforts of Charlie Kirk.
As supporters mourn his death, the justice system tirelessly building their case. FBI Director Kash Patel confirming DNA evidence found at the crime scene.
The DNA hits from the towel that was wrapped around the firearm and the DNA on the screwdriver are positively processed for the suspect in custody.
The suspect also left a note.
The suspect wrote a note saying, I have the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it. That note was written before the shooting.
The note reportedly was left in the home the suspect shared with his partner.
We can confirm that that his roommate was indeed a boyfriend who is transitioning from male to female.
Utah's Governor Spencer Cox says those close to the suspect told investigators he had become deeply indoctrinated with left-wing ideology.
That has come from his acquaintances and his family members.
President Trump crediting Charlie Kirk for helping him retake the White House.
I got the youth vote. I got numbers that nobody's ever even come close to in the Republican Party. A lot was attributed to Charlie.
Trump will head to Arizona for Kirk's memorial service this weekend.
Spiritual battle is coming to the West.
Meanwhile, those accused of celebrating the assassination on social media continue to get fired, suspended, or face other forms of punishment from a wide range of employers. Microsoft releasing a statement saying comments celebrating violence against anyone are unacceptable and do not align with our values. Kirk's death only amplified his message.
What is a woman?
His social media pages gaining millions of followers in the aftermath of the assassination. His Instagram page going from 6.9 million to 12.2 million. And Kirk's organization, Turning Point USA, receiving 37,000 requests to open new chapters in the past few days.
The suspect accused of assassinating Charlie Kirk will have his first court appearance on Tuesday. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins reporting for the National News Desk, America's News Now.
2 men in custody in Salt Lake City under suspicion of placing a bomb or some sort of incendiary device under a local news media vehicle on Friday as multiple outlets were covering the arrest of Tyler Robinson. Court documents say the incendiary device had been lit but failed to function as designed. During the raid of the suspect's home, 58-year-old Adib Nasir and 31-year-old Adil Justice Ahmay Nasir, FBI agents found 2 other devices that turned out to be hoax weapons of mass destruction. Additional explosives, firearms, illegal drugs, and drug paraphernalia all seized at the home as well. An urgent manhunt now happening for the suspect in a triple murder over the weekend in Georgetown, Texas. On Saturday, police found an 8-year-old girl, a 34-year-old male, and a 39-year-old female inside an apartment. Authorities believe the killer knew the victims. Well, the U.S. finally has a deal with China to save TikTok. Today, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent announced the 2 countries agreed to a framework, and that was confirmed by China's top trade negotiator. This comes just 2 days before the deadline for the popular video sharing app to be sold or shut down in the U.S. President Trump and Xi are expected to finalize the agreement Friday. South Korea says it's investigating whether hundreds of its workers suffered human rights violations during a raid by U.S. immigration authorities. Over 300 South Koreans returned home last week after being arrested at a Hyundai plant in Georgia. U.S. officials say they were here illegally. It marks a strain in relations between the 2 allied countries. Now to continuing coverage here of the Ryan Routh attempted assassination trial. 1 year ago today, Ryan Routh was arrested after a close call involving an intruder with an assault rifle at Trump International Golf Course. Then presidential candidate Donald Trump was within range of that rifle. Routh is now representing himself against the prosecution, who is presenting the witnesses against him. The National News Desk, Jack Wu, is in Fort Pierce, Florida, with day 6 of the trial.
Ryan Routh was more assertive today than I've seen him thus far, more confident in his courtroom presence, but he's still having a hard time. Some potential strong moments for Ryan Routh quickly dashed by federal prosecutors and Judge Cannon. Routh's attempts to cross-examine witnesses came to a halt because he keeps going back to something the judge told him to leave alone. While questioning an evidence coordinator from the FBI headquarters, Routh repeatedly asked about testing of the rifle's accuracy. Prosecutors objected, and they cited a previous ruling that deemed that line of questioning irrelevant to the charges. Routh also grilled the firearms expert, who said he recovered the weapon's serial number except for the last letter. With a finite number of possibilities, Routh asked why the FBI didn't just plug in every letter and see if anything came back. This was yet another instance of Routh asking the right question to the wrong witness. As the expert told him, this could only be answered by the case agent. And some surprising moments. Judge Cannon got involved with Routh's defense by objecting on his behalf multiple times during prosecution questioning. She called prosecutors' questions leading several times, a move we haven't seen since things got underway last week. The firearms expert who tested the weapon at the crime scene was particularly compelling, painting a clear picture of a man who could have killed Donald Trump. Even though Routh's questions during cross haven't been successful to this point, he seems to be adapting, asking questions of more relevance each day. We'll have to see how this plays out, as prosecutors are expected to end their arguments by Thursday. We'll give you the developments in this case as they happen. Reporting in Fort Pierce, Florida, I'm Jack Wu.
Coming up, a message from Vice President J.D. Vance today on the death of his longtime friend, Charlie Kirk. Then, what's the winning message for the Democratic Party, and which candidate will best represent its future? A look at one mayoral candidate hoping to provide some answers. Also on the way, the schools that are now getting hundreds of millions of dollars from the federal government. We'll be right back. Bringing you live to the U.S. Capitol, where a vigil to remember the assassinated political activist Charlie Kirk will be starting there soon. House Speaker Mike Johnson is hosting the event in the Statuary Hall with remarks and prayers. He said all members of Congress were invited. It comes after administration officials and lawmakers spoke at a vigil yesterday at the Kennedy Center. And the Secret Service is making security preparations for Kirk's funeral and memorial service on Sunday in Arizona. According to CNN, State Farm Stadium can hold more than 63,000 people, and anyone can register to attend. It's possible the memorial will be designated as a national special security event, which would open up extra federal resources. And today, Vice President J.D. Vance hosted an edition of the Charlie Kirk Show, saying it was an opportunity to pay tribute to his friend.
But the best way to honor him is to shine the light of truth like a torch in the very darkest places. Go do it. We owe it to our friend to ensure that his killer is not just prosecuted but punished. And the worst punishment is not the death penalty, but the knowledge that Charlie's mission continues after he's gone.
Vance and his wife Usha had a close relationship with Kirk. They accompanied his casket on a flight to Phoenix on Thursday after Kirk was fatally shot at Utah Valley University Wednesday. Well, Clemson University called an emergency Board of Trustees committee meeting today in response to comments made by employees of the university, including professors on social media about Charlie Kirk's death. Now, before the meeting began this afternoon, the university confirmed at least one employee has been terminated and at least 2 teachers have been stripped of their duties while an investigation into their comments is ongoing. And this is not an isolated incident at Clemson. From MSNBC to NASDAQ to several other universities and public schools to even the Secret Service, several people are being placed on leave or dismissed for their comments about the death of Charlie Kirk. And you can be part of this conversation on our question of the day, because we're asking, do you think people should lose their jobs for celebrating Charlie Kirk's assassination? To weigh in, go to thenationaldesk.com. You can find this question on our homepage. Secretary of State Marco Rubio visiting Jerusalem for meetings about the ongoing war and the hostages. The trip comes amid Israel's escalating offensive in Gaza City. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Rubio held a joint press conference.
It's still a fundamental fact that the people of Gaza deserve a better future, a future which is not possible until the hostages are all released and Hamas no longer exists.
Meanwhile, the leaders of several Arab and Islamic countries attended an emergency summit in Doha following that Israeli strike on Qatar's capital city last week. More world news now. The United States, South Korea, and Japan have begun joint military exercises off of a South Korean island. The air and naval exercises called Freedom Edge is aimed at strengthening the country's combined operational capabilities. The drills are necessary to counter North Korea's growing nuclear and missile threats. That's according to South Korea's defense ministry. Meanwhile, though, in a statement today, North Korean officials say their country's status as a nuclear state has become irreversible. This despite efforts by the West to negotiate an end to the production of those weapons. The Democratic Party has been described by some as lost in the woods since the 2024 presidential election. Now, as the party remains on the hunt for a winning message and a more defined brand, one local race is bringing a national spotlight to the types of issues and candidates more and more Democrats are rallying behind. Here's national correspondent Christine Frizzell.
It's time to fall in line. That's the message from Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen to New Yorkers on their upcoming mayoral race.
It means supporting our Democratic nominee in New York City's mayoral race, Zohran Mamdani.
Zohran Mamdani is a self-proclaimed Democratic socialist who ran on a platform focusing on affordable housing, city-owned grocery stores, no-cost childcare, and a new Department of Community Safety.
There will be visible, trained teams in our subways. Their presence and their work will make all of us safer. Police have a critical role to play, but right now we're relying on them to deal with the failures of our social safety net.
Governor Kathy Hochul, the latest to back him, despite their, quote, disagreements, prompting this response from President Trump, calling it a rather shocking development and seeming to threaten withholding federal funds with, quote, no reason to be sending good money after bad.
I call him my little communist. He's my little communist mayor. But, you know, he has to come to Washington for money, a lot of money.
A New York Times Siena poll from earlier this month shows him with 46% of support. Former Governor Andrew Cuomo, running as an independent after losing to Mamdani, has 24%. Republican Curtis Sliwa has 15%, and current Mayor Eric Adams has 9%. Other New York Democrats have yet to throw their support behind Mamdani, including House and Senate Minority Leaders Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer, as some Democrats warn he's far too progressive and not representative of national party politics.
My party is acting in a way they have forgotten. They have forgotten one of the reasons why we lost in 2024. Some people think now we have to double down on those things, or we must become more progressive or more extreme. That's absolutely not true.
Ever since the 2024 election, Democrats have struggled to find their footing. Polls have shown slipping voter registration and popularity, including one Wall Street Journal poll in July that found just 33% of voters held a favorable view of Democrats. I'm Christine Frizzell for the National News Desk.
Congressman Buddy Carter is calling on Congresswoman Ilhan Omar to be stripped of all of her House committee assignments. This comes after the Minnesota Democrat criticized Charlie Kirk's rhetoric while talking about his murder last week. Congresswoman Omar says her comments are being taken out of context, and she says Kirk's death was mortifying. Now, there is precedent for this resolution. In 2021, all Democrats and 11 Republicans voted to strip then freshman Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of her committees for perceived comments supporting racism, anti-Semitism, as well as conspiracy theories pushed by QAnon. The House Oversight Committee now has more Jeffrey Epstein documents in their possession. Late last week, the Epstein estate produced additional documents, including more pages from the birthday book, as well as another book of addresses belonging to Epstein. This new information was subpoenaed by the committee. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering the issues that matter to you. From a memorial for Charlie Kirk getting bigger at Utah Valley University to supporting students and their classmates with cancer in Ohio. We're taking the pulse of America, and we start in Texas, where a controversial bathroom bill is set to be signed into law.
We spoke with Landon Ritchie outside of the state capitol this week, just one of the buildings that will fall under the guidance of Senate Bill 8.
By law, I, as a man, as a transgender man, would be required to use women's facilities.
Under the bill that's expected to soon get a signature from the governor, government entities are required to put in place policies to make sure people are using the bathroom of their biological sex. School districts, counties, and cities will set their own enforcement procedures or risk tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines for violations.
No girl shall ever have to fear going to the restroom or locker room and have to look over her shoulder to feel that a male is there.
Charlie Kirk was shot, the grass is being pulled up, but what remains planted here are memories and mourning.
I just kind of wanted to come back and see the aftermath.
This memorial on Utah Valley University's campus has become a sacred ground. Messages of love, anger, and confusion flood the space.
Being here today, it's almost like a sense of power or strength coming back and kind of overcoming it, while still obviously there are nerves a little bit.
Fifth grader Lainey Ballard and her family are receiving $7,000 from Little Miami schools for her cancer treatments. The young cheerleader was just 2 days away from starting the school year when she got a fever and noticed swelling. Her mom, Nicole Cunningham, took her to the hospital where she was diagnosed with stage 2 type B bulky Hodgkin lymphoma.
It's heartbreaking, but at the same time, I feel like I have to stay strong because I have to be her rock because that's my job as a mom.
When her school found out, they knew they wanted to help. The money isn't the only way Lainey's friends and classmates are showing support. Boys from the 2nd, 4th, and 5th grade youth football teams joined Lainey in solidarity by shaving their heads.
Still ahead, the current state of the Department of Education as the Trump administration gets closer to unraveling it. We'll be right back. Today, the Department of Education announced 3 massive investments for this fiscal year. A historic $500 million in grants awarded to charter schools to support education choice. The department is also sending more money to historically black colleges and universities and tribally controlled colleges, meaning HBCUs will now receive over $1.3 billion and TCCUs over $108 million in 2025. Now, some of that money is being redirected from cuts of other minority-serving programs. Education Secretary Linda McMahon says the department has, quote, carefully scrutinized our federal grants and is promoting merit and excellence in education over, quote, racially discriminatory programs. These changes are also concurrent with the president's plan of dismantling the Department of Education. That process is moving closer to being finalized, but not without pushback. The National News Desk, Angela Brown, explains.
It's a victory conservatives have called for since the 80s, and now President Donald Trump is doing it. The Federal Department of Education is being broken up, the duties handed over to other agencies. The latest move, the Daily Caller reporting workforce programs moved to the Department of Labor. Erica Donald's America First Policy Institute Chair, Education Opportunity.
Just because we are dismantling the Department of Education doesn't mean we're getting rid of all of the programs that should be kept. We talked about civil rights going to the Department of Justice. We talked about these workforce programs going to the Department of Labor. Special needs services some of those may go to HHS.
Former Department of Ed Secretary under Obama, John King, argues that dismantling the Department of Ed and job cuts could lead to less accountability.
One of the core functions of the department is civil rights enforcement. When folks have a child with a disability who isn't getting their services, the department is the place you go to file a complaint. They got more than 20,000 complaints last year, but the layoffs targeted those very offices.
Earlier this year, the Supreme Court cleared the way for the Trump administration to lay off more than 1,400 Education Department workers. The move is part of Trump's broader plan to dismantle the Department of Education. Lawsuits from states, unions, and advocacy groups are still moving forward. In Washington, D.C., I'm Angela Brown.
Coming up, it is already time to write a letter to Santa. How you can partner with the North Pole this year to grant a child's holiday wish right after this. So it's only September, but kids can actually start sending those letters to Santa now. The Postal Service's Operation Santa connects letter writers with people who can get those letters directly to the North Pole. The envelope should include the writer's full name, return address, and Santa's address, and it must be postmarked by December 6th. To learn more, go to USPSOperationSanta.com. All right, that's all the time we have for this edition of the National News Desk. We invite you to join us again this evening for more from President Trump on his plans for Memphis. I'm Taylor Murray. Thanks for watching.